Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Holistic Navigator podcast, where we talk about all things holistic health and believe in the body's capacity for self-healing, if it's given the proper nutrients and care. We want to say welcome to any new listeners we have, and we hope everyone is staying safe and well during this season. I'm Brian Strickland, the producer of the show, and I'm joined in studio by our host, Ed Jones. As we continue to try to navigate this pandemic, we thought it was important to continue the conversation of how to guard and protect yourself through natural means. On this week's episode, we're happy to welcome back Jerry Angelini, Head of Education for Host Defense Mushrooms. Host Defense is dedicated to offering the best quality and research mushroom products, and we're not talking about what you find on the salad bar. We'll dive into the unique world of functional mushrooms in just a moment, but before we do, let me introduce the host of the show, Mr. Ed Jones.
Thank you, Brian, and also welcome everyone to the Holistic Navigator again. Today, my guest is Jerry Angelini. I've had him on the Holistic Navigator before. He has been visited me locally. I've spent time with him. He is a true expert in the field of mushrooms and how they offer an amazing benefit to our health, but specifically for this podcast, in regard to, of course, what we're all dealing with, which is the coronavirus or other viruses. We're not just putting it under one label. It's really any sickness that comes our way. Welcome to the Holistic Navigator, Jerry.
Hey, Ed. It's great to be here again with you.
Always enlightening and a pleasure to speak with you. If you will, give people just a tiny snippet of your history, because I regard you as one of the leading, most experienced experts in this country, and maybe even more than that, on many topics, but especially on the value of medicinal mushrooms. So can you enlighten people kind of your history a little bit?
For sure. I have a Master's of Science in Rehabilitation Medicine from BU, Boston University, and I've studied traditional Chinese medicine at 5 branches at New England School of Acupuncture. Although I don't, I'm not an acupuncturist. My training really has been in Western traditional Chinese medicine herbal practices, as well as Ayurveda as well. I've had a private practice for integrative healthcare for over 30 years and have treated, I can't even, thousands of people over the years. Mm-hmm. And utilizing conventional as well as complementary interventions to support health and wellness.
Absolutely. And some people have PhDs totally from college. Other people have PhDs from life history and experience. And I do regard you as one of the in great esteem, because I know of your value to other human beings. Well, I want to enter this conversation, of course, with speaking of the pandemic that we are now all dealing with. And I know that we're going to get through this. We will. There'll be a green light on the other side. It's just a matter of when will that happen. But during this time of great amount of angst and anxiety, I want to kind of do a preface here. The thing that we are concerned about with this newer virus, and it's really not new, it's been around forever, but it's never been pandemic before, is that the immune system's job, of course, is to, like soldiers, go in and find the bad guys, bad girls, and eliminate them. Well, in this case, the immune system in some individuals, not everybody, the immune system goes really, throws out too much ammunition. And what happens is that ammunition actually triggers something called a cytokine storm. And what is that? That is where the immune system is overly aggressive. Then the body responds in an overly aggressive way. And in this particular pandemic, that sometimes means that the lungs will be severely affected and fluid will fill them. So what we're trying to accomplish is maintaining an immune system that is very focused, very strong, very like a rifle, not a shotgun, but not overly, not making bad decisions about sending too many troops in that will cause a huge negative outcome. And I know I did a podcast 2 podcasts ago with Dr. Michael Smith from Life Extension Foundation, and we talked basically about this, the use of high-dose melatonin at night, the use of DHEA in the morning, vitamin D, of course, vitamin C, all the way down the list. So if you want more information, please go back to the Dr. Michael Smith podcast. But I am always been a massive fan and research the value of these mushrooms, because even before this pandemic, I would talk to people daily about the fact of these mushrooms are the right ones from the right company will end up helping to produce a focused immune system. So I know I've talked a little too long about it, but you start and tell the people the story of why and how and what I'm speaking about, please, Jerry.
For sure. So the host defense mushrooms are really a unique substance. They're not created the way the traditional mushroom product has been created over time, because we're using the mycelium, which is like the root structure, plus the rice that we grow it on, and that rice becomes fermented by the mycelium. So the rice isn't really rice anymore. It's kind of like what yogurt is after you put those lactobacilli in there, and it takes the milk and it eats it and it ferments it, and then it creates this fermented food. And we've had the product tested, and both parts of the product, both the mycelium and the fermented rice, are immunologically active. And they do it in a really complementary way. So the mushroom mycelium helps engage immune cells like natural killer cells and monocytes. And these are kind of the parts of the immune system that go after things like bacterial and viral infections, right? Mm-hmm. But then the fermented rice engages the modulatory aspect of the immune response. And this is really important because the immune system's function is it creates this inflammatory reaction. And the inflammation is the release of these cytokines that people are talking about. And they're cell signalers, and they tell certain immune cells to do this, and they can increase the amount of fluid that's in a particular tissue by increasing permeability. There are all these growth factors that can be released. And so there's a lot of work that's going on there. But the last part of the immune stage, the last stage in the immune response is what we call resolution. And so we need to make sure that the right signals are being sent to engage the resolution of the immune response so that things go back to normal. And with a cytokine storm, that doesn't happen. What we found is that the fermented rice, in fact, triggers the resolution of the immune response and helps bring the system back to normal. And there are 2 key cytokines that are involved in this. And these signalers, basically, they control the amount of these inflammatory cytokines that are being released. And it's brilliant because basically the product is one of these all-in-one products. It gets your immune system up and running. It makes sure it's doing all the work it needs to do, but then it says the war is over, right? Mm-hmm. And it helps the immune system get back down to normal levels. And this is really unique because if you just take like a traditionally prepared mushroom, it does not do that. Not typically. What it does is it gets the immune system up and running, but it's not necessarily directing the modulation of the immune response to get it back down to normal pre-reactive levels.
Great explanation. And there's not many things in my 41-year career that we have so many immune stimulants, we have very few immune modulators. And the thing like the cytokine storm, it has to do with these fancy words, interleukin 8, interleukin 10, and all these things. And vitamin D and mushrooms are my two absolute favorites for helping to refocus this, to help the body know the wisdom of when to fight and when to turn the switches off. And it was a great explanation. Now, I know, Jerry, there's a lot of different mushrooms available. And I will say at this point, legally, we're not telling people that you can treat your disease with any natural remedies, including mushrooms. This is really about a game plan just to, optimize the immune system to help you to be healthier. And we do have a partner with a website, nutritionw.com, that you can order any of these products from under the label of whichever one you choose. But let's go through a little list because we're not dealing with mushrooms like on the salad bar for people who don't know these things. We're dealing with some very, a big host of fancy mushrooms. I guess I'll use the name. But tell us a little bit about agarikon and some of these other combinations, please.
Agarikon is an amazing mushroom when we take a look at its potential impact on the immune system. And it strongly gets those immune cells in the fight. But it also has a strong capacity to engage those regulatory mechanisms and really get that immune system back down to resolution again. And we found that, in fact, it's so strong, you really don't need to take it at the same amount that you would take other products. And so, if you're in this particular time of year and you have some concerns, like you can take 1 or 2 grams a day, and that's going to have a really profound impact on your system. Whereas turkey tail, which has a very similar response, isn't as strong, and you might want to take 3 grams of turkey tail to really get that strong, engaged immune response, but also make sure that that immune system is going to stay within what I like to call the Goldilocks zone, right? It's not too hot, it's not too cold, it's just right. And then, from there, those are 2 great products to work with, just year round to make sure everything's going great. You can take a look at Myco Shield. That's a 5 mushroom blend. It has agarikon in it. It has turkey tail in it, and it also has reishi and chaga. And these 4 mushrooms are awesome at regulating the immune response. So this can be something that you can also use. It's a spray. It goes right into your mouth. And that can be really helpful for people who have a lot of contact with other individuals, right? Just to kind of make sure that your immune system is up and strong. So like teachers and medical staff and restaurants or people who work in retail, or if you're on public transportation, that Myco Shield spray is awesome. And you got 5 flavors too. So, 4 to 5 sprays, 4 to 5 times a day is a great way to make sure that immune system is strong and engaged.
Now, are you speaking about this is for daily prevention or if we're feeling under the weather? What do we do under the weather?
Oh, when things start to feel bad, then hop right into that My Community. Like you can do like 2 capsules, 4 to 6 times a day. And like, that's a lot, but you're really only going to need it for like 3 to 5 days. Like most people respond so rapidly that when you take that much of it, you get that really powerful modulatory activity. So your immune system's engaged, it's really strong, but it's also going to come back down to resolution really quickly.
But now we can do this with agarikon also if that's all we have, right?
Yeah, so any of the mushrooms are going to really help this process. Okay. We just find that My Community is 17 different mushrooms. And so there's this really beautiful synergy that's going on with those 17 mushrooms. But the agarikon is super strong. It's very powerful. I always have it. I actually take it every day because I travel so much, right? So it's kind of one of those things for me that I think is critical for longevity and just extended health.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I know that I want to make this statement because some people think that people like you and I have all the magic bullets and we should never, ever, ever fall prey to a bacteria or a virus. And it's simply not true. We all are susceptible. None of us have a perfect immune system, or terrain is what I'd like to call also, because of stress and these things that come into our life. But the difference is the amount of downtime, the amount of suffering that can come with a person who has a very compromised system compared to someone who has a very steady, robust system like I feel you do, and I certainly try my best. So, if I walk around with the sniffles and I did get a bad cold or I did get anything, it's not like, this doesn't mean it doesn't work. What's the difference is I'll be back to work in 3 to 5 days and I won't get a secondary infection. So that's where I want to put on the value, so much the value of nourishing the body and doing all the right things, from the sleep to the this to the that. Now, I love cordyceps, and cordyceps is one of my favorite herbs or mushrooms for the lung function. Where would that fit into this conversation, Jerry?
I was actually just going to hop in on that because this is really important. That Breathe formula has cordyceps, reishi, and chaga in it. And we know that one of the challenges that can happen when the upper respiratory system is under duress is there can be a lot of mucus production. And one of the activities that is associated with cordyceps is increasing the fluidity of upper respiratory mucus secretion. So instead of it becoming thick and sticky and hard to move, cordyceps helps liquefy that mucus so that your body can expectorate it easier. And you can use other substances along with it for sure that can be really helpful at creating that more liquefied mucus state. And remember, we want to cough that stuff up. We want to get it out of our bodies. And that's why I think that Breathe formula is just brilliant, because it's going to help the cells that line the lungs and the upper respiratory system. It's going to help the immune system be engaged, but it's going to help balance and rein in an overreactive immune response as well. So it's going to really help keep that immune system right in that Goldilocks zone, plus make sure that we're getting adequate oxygenation. Cordyceps is brilliant for increasing oxygenation as well. And so I think within that formula, either the Breathe formula or the Cordychi formula, which is cordyceps and reishi, I think that's amazing. Like, it can be very helpful for increasing graceful breathing.
I love that word, graceful breathing. At this point in history, I've been doing this as long as you have, and I'm really going to see, and I feel there's going to be a major shift toward the nourishment conversation, the less toxic medicine chest for the future will be built from the things that you and I have lived our life from, because we're now the public who, I'm not being harsh on them, but they're fully unaware of the shortcomings of conventional medicine. And many of them have lived under the illusion that pretty much the docs will fix me if something goes wrong until the last bitter end. Well, we're now saying that isn't the case. All they can offer us is ventilators and hand sanitizer, pretty much. I hate to be harsh, but we have to step up to the plate to present and put together our own kind of healing protocols with knowledge and wisdom from people like you, Jerry, and people who have lived a life to learn the details, because you can't learn this in medical school. And those are medical people are wonderfully heart-filled, and I know they've got the best intentions all the way across the board. And in acute situations, I want them. They're the miracle workers. But for these long-term chronic and these type of viral infections, they don't have a toolbox, and it's not their fault because they weren't taught it. So we're trying to teach people the basics of what can you access to basically save your life at this point in some cases, but also mainly to improve your life and not fall prey to these secondary infections and all these things. Because the thing is, throughout history, we have had a robust immune system if the society was healthy, but many times it's not. Like the 1918 flu, there was a big study done in 2007 that went back and looked at, some of the reasons why that happened. And it was really boiled down to two things: lack of sanitation and lack of nourishment. And both of those are recipes for disaster. Lack of nourishment is, of course, what it sounds like. Well, with these mushrooms, we're in an age where we're able to access strong natural remedies, and that's what, of course, that's my whole life's been built on. So I want to encourage people. There is great hope always to boost your body, help yourself, but it requires you to be able to be open-minded and learn. And I say this often I'll separate the world into two kind of classes of people: learners and non-learners. Well, this kind of time in our history has presented ourselves with the fact we do need to learn some things, or at least gather people around us as a team who knows these natural options for health. So again, I'm taking mushroom daily for prevention. I'm doing moderate doses only, as I do everything. But if I start feeling under the weather, I am going to increase my doses of many things, but mushrooms specifically is one of my most important ones. Is there any other tips or anything you'd like to leave people with before we end the podcast?
Mushrooms are great if you use them with other substances. So you can use mushrooms with like elderberry juice concentrate. You can use it with zinc. You can use it with vitamin D. You can use it with olive leaf extract, So there are all these really wonderful other herbs that you can add into in a complementary fashion with the mushrooms themselves. So don't just think that you've got to take them separately. And I know a lot of the retail stores out there know about this, but I'm just saying this to reinforce it with the consumers that they play well in the sandbox together, so to say. So, don't hesitate around that. The mushrooms, although they're all going to support your immune system, can all benefit something else in your body too. So you can, after you get through this period where you have significant concerns about immunity, think about how the mushrooms might in fact help things like brain functioning and neurological health. Maybe you do have some breathing concerns outside of, winter wellness concerns. Think about Breathe for that. But there's every system of the body can be beneficially impacted by the use of mushrooms. So definitely keep your eyes open. There's a lot of great information out there. You can hop onto hostdefense.com and do some of the reading we have there. And of course, you can come down and talk to Ed and all of the fine crew there. They're very knowledgeable. An amazing staff, I have to say, you have there, Ed. They're really amazing people. Keep your eyes open.
Thank you so much, Jerry, because I do have to say Host Defense, many, many years ago, they were a modest player in my world. But as the years went on and the more I respected the company, Paul Stamets, I got to meet him in Anaheim 2 or 3 years ago, went to a big event there. There's a lot of great people, but his company and you are really the peak for me as far as the total package of quality, ethics, standards, marketability, everything that you would want in a Rolls-Royce kind of company in the nutritional field. And so I know there's other good companies, but honestly, I put my bet totally on Host Defense from A to Z. And I hope other people listening can, if they trust me at all, I think they will believe what I'm saying because it's true. And I do want to say lion's mane, which is nothing to do with this immune system, is unbelievable for memory and sharpness of thinking.
Right. That stuff is brilliant.
And right now a lot of us have foggy thinking. We're under the gun 24/7. We're not sleeping as well. We have the stress. And I do want to encourage people to understand that we will make it through this. And during this process, being as much connected to calmness as we can through techniques or through helpers like natural remedies like CBD, like GABA, theanine, many of the herbal compounds that can help take the edge off will help us to journey through these stormy times. So we're going to do another podcast on that, just about the calming options that we have. But I want people to know they are available. And the ones I mentioned are some of the most beneficial to me. And as far as technique, I'm a huge believer and have been for decades in a very slow, controlled breathing in order to change the electrical system of the body to lower cortisol. And I kind of talk about, if we can do 8 breaths in 60 seconds, that is a way to help reset some of this overburdening nervous system. Do you have any techniques for calming you'd like to share before we leave, Jerry?
I think if you've got like prayers that you say, mantras, if you have like music that's calming and soothing, I think that's an amazing thing. They have these on YouTube. You can get like videos of the ocean and just like, a sunny, beach where you just listen to the waves. And it's really very powerful at changing the stimuli that's coming in. And instead of watching the news, which can be really overwhelming, switch to one of these other things that actually reduces that kind of negative input that's coming into your body. So like turn off the news, turn on like your favorite song that's soothing, whether it's prayerful or whether it's just instrumental or, maybe some classical music, and like change the channel, literally. Change the channel.
That's a wonderful way to end this podcast, Jerry, and I so appreciate it, and I want to send all my best to you, your family, and to the world on us being quick at healing this kind of virus and parasite that's come our way, and we will persevere and get through this. So thank you, Jerry, and we will be, I know, talking to you later down the road about other health topics related to mushrooms. And to everyone out there, stay calm, be confident, and we will be speaking to you from now on because I'm not going anywhere, and we're going to be here for the long haul. Take care. This is Ed at the Holistic Navigator.
The information on this podcast and the topics discussed have not been evaluated by the FDA or anyone of the medical profession and is not aimed to replace any advice you may receive from your medical practitioner. The Holistic Navigator assumes no responsibility or liability whatsoever on the behalf of any purchaser or reader of these materials. The Holistic Navigator is not a doctor, nor does he claim to be. Please consult your physician before beginning any health regimen.